Well, good morning. Welcome to the New South Wales Permanent Way Institution's Annual Convention for 2022. I'm Mark Harris, I'm the President of the PWI in New South Wales, and today our convention theme will be Doing Better with Less. I'll just run through a few safety slides just before we start, just so you understand what's required at the Fullerton. There's no safety drills planned for today, so if we do hear the traditional beep, 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 you understand that that's ready to evacuate the building, so we get prepared for that. The second one, the whoop, 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 obviously, is we move to the nearest exit and we follow the signs from either the hotel staff, the floor or exit wardens. Also, the Fullerton is a non-smoking venue, as you're aware, so if you do need to smoke, you'll need to go outside up onto into Martin Place there. Also, a reminder that at lunch we do serve alcohol with our meal, and for those who are rail safety workers, you need to take your own responsibility and be aware of your responsibilities under the National Rail Safety legislation. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome everyone back to our first face-to-face convention in 3 years. If you recall, the last one we had was back in 2019 when we were in Bathurst, and the theme there was Rail Better by a Country Mile. We had the privilege of the Honourable Paul Toole, who was the Minister for Regional Transport, Roads and a member for Bathurst, as our keynote speaker, and as you're aware, he's now the Deputy Premier, Minister for Police and Regional New South Wales. For anyone who is attending this conference for the first time, a big welcome to you all. And just for that, if you're aware, the PWI, we've been running these conventions, this is our 48th. We've been running them since 1974 when the PWI was formed in New South Wales. In fact, this is our 48th, so 2 years' time, 50, big celebration planned for our 50th convention in 2 years' time. But before we actually start with the formalities, I'd like to introduce Uncle Michael West from the Metropolitan Aboriginal Land Council to provide a welcome to country for us. Michael.
Thank you. Thanks. I was going to say, Bajadi Gamarua Gadigal g'day and welcome to Gadigal and Eora Land. What I was thinking too is that when I was young, I had a Hornby train set. You guys are in the train industry, correct? Yes, I also did the welcome to country for the opening of the Epping and Chatswood line many, many years ago. I was expecting a lot of cardigans when I see suits. Yes. Well, I think a guy named Thomas has made the rail industry a bit more sexy these days, except all the kids. I think you know what I'm talking about, Thomas the Tank Engine. We all need a bit of a laugh, don't we? We're going through very interesting and difficult times. I think it's a great opportunity to educate. I actually know a lot of these organisations here. I've been doing research at Metro on the reconciliation action plans that are out there. Because one of the things we're going to do in this future is contact everyone and do our own annual report of how you're interacting with us. But I think it's a great opportunity to educate. So on this side, I'll get you all to get your phones out. You can take it back out. And I'll get you to have a look at Brewarrina fish traps, because you guys are into construction engineering, correct? Yes. So Brewarrina fish traps on this side and hunting bird manuscript on this side. So what that means is have a look at these things that puts into context about our culture and our sites. So as Aboriginal people, we have culture and sites, but our sites and culture is also your sites and culture to look after for not only fellow Australians, but humanity itself when you think about it. And you will understand that in a second when you look at Brewarrina fish traps, what they say, how old they are. And Aboriginal people did trade up the top. We did trade amongst ourselves for 65,000 years. Said this at Business Council of Australia's annual dinner. Only a few people laughed, but they knew I was that I was telling the truth. We also did trade for 400 or 500 years up the top with sea cucumbers, with Indonesia, Macassans and Asia. I know the previous federal government said they had the first trade agreement, but hey, if we're doing trade for 400 or 500 years, wouldn't we have the first trade agreement? Yes. So what did you find for Brewarrina fish traps? I bet you if I had kids here, they would have got it already. Sorry? Okay. Well, What they are is they're the oldest human construction in the world, known construction in the world. They're more than 40,000 years. They're aquaculture and engineering, to put that into context. So in New South Wales, we need to protect these things. And what did you find about the hunting bird manuscript in the Vatican? You'll see a very familiar face there. A cockatoo, yes. And what century is that? 13th century. Cockatoo, 13th century. Process that, what that means. And they did have an exhibition a few years ago about those sea cucumbers down in Melbourne. I guess it's important too that we do take a moment of reflection, a moment of paying respects to our ancestors and pay respects to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander traditional owners, elders and custodians of the past, present and future. As I said, ancestors are very important. We're all going to return to Mother Earth and become part of her and become an ancestor. And also country, when you think about it, everything comes from country. Everything. So it's important to respect her. Look, she's been speaking louder and louder every year, hasn't she, with the floods and with the firestorms. So we really need to get back to thinking about how we can live sustainably and respect her. And we used to do it with fire. Fire for us is part of ceremony, but it's also about fire stick farming and regeneration. It is low intensity burning, preparation, so the animals could leave, which are part of our totem systems, but they're also all connected. Everything in the universe, in the scheme of things, is connected, so we need to understand that. So if we also, with the moment's silence, we also reflect our journey right here, right now. It's important to do that, and also pay respects for the last few years for those we've lost in the pandemic. I think is pretty important, because they weren't just numbers, they were people with dreams, aspirations, and also part of families and communities. So we need to remember these things. So if we just have a moment's silence and a moment of reflection of our journey, thanks, and paying respects. We have 3 beautiful waterways, Hawkesbury, Georges and Nepean. These are the aquatic boundaries of our nation. To any of my Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters out there, we warmly welcome you from country, from clan, from tribe, from nation, to all our brothers and sisters, and we are all brothers and sisters, belong to one mob, one tribe, humanity. We warmly welcome you from family, neighbourhood, community, and ultimately the country you come from. We share little blue marble floating through the ever-expanding cosmos. On behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, we welcome you here today, and we want you to have a safe stay and a safe journey home to your family and loved ones. And also please take that time out to look after your own self-care, because we are going through very interesting times, one might say. And also, always was, always will be Aboriginal land, never ceded, and we can achieve great things when we all work and walk together, and we need to have a conversation or a yarn, as we say, on a few things moving forward, like some dates and some other things. So I'll let you have a think about that. Good leadership is about not being divisive, it's about compassion, it's about empathy, sympathy, and being able to take people with you, and having good communication skills and building the capacity of those around you. I'll leave you with those thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, as I said before, our theme for today is doing better with less. So really seeking to challenge the industry that's really been fairly fortunate to have such a huge investment pipeline over the last decade, with a lot more to come over the next decade as well. You know, and off the back of the last 2 years and the current economic challenges we face, we're questioning how well are we prepared to continue to deliver with the prospect of having less to do it with less CapEx, less OPEC funding, less resources, less waste, less time, and less room to make mistakes. The question is, have we become a little bit complacent and therefore blindly walking towards failure? So there's sort of some of the questions we want to sort of challenge ourselves today as part of this convention. Really fortunate this morning to have Jim Betts here as our keynote speaker. Jim is Secretary of the Department of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development, Communication and Arts. and he'll be, as I said, our keynote speaker this morning. I'm sure Jim will set the scene for the convention and challenge us with the views from his point of view from an infrastructure perspective. Also joined here this morning with our session chairs, so we've got two of our platinum members, Piers Verman, who's the Operations Manager for CPB, and Steve Butcher, who is the Executive General Manager for Rail and Transport at John Holland. Also got John Armstrong, who's the Managing Director of Arch Artefacts, as one of our silver corporates. So those are our three chairs for today. So Steve and his team have pulled together a fairly exciting agenda for you this morning. So the first session will be chaired by Piers Verman from CPB. Our first speaker will be Rebecca Want. Rebecca is GHD's Marketing Leader in Transport for New South Wales. Rebecca will be joined with Rory Waddell, and they'll be talking about optimising design and sharing the perspectives of the designers as an essential member of the supply chain and the collaborative design solutions. We've got Christina Livingston, who's the Principal Organisation Consultant for iConnect Consulting. And she's going to be discussing lean construction, so the opportunities to reduce time, effort and waste. That'd be really interesting. And then following Rebecca and Christina, Prathnantha Kumar and from Sydney Metro will be introducing our PWI 2022 Young Achiever Award winner. As I said, our second session will be chaired by Steve Butcher from John Hollands. And like CPB, Hollands is also one of the inaugural platinum members of the PWI, and they continue to provide great support for us. We've got a paper on digital engineering by Kyle Furlong from John Hollands, and that'll be giving us some insight onto their use of digital engineering, their application on projects. That's a really interesting paper. I've already looked at that. Dr. Natalie Galea, who is a Senior Research Fellow in the Faculty of Architecture, Building, Planning at the University of Melbourne, will deliver a case study for a Monday to Friday work week and the mental health benefits that has. That's a really challenging presentation that we should all have a really good look at. Really looking forward to hearing Mike Hickey talk this morning. So most of you know Mike was past president of the PWI. He's also a Director of Rail Planning Services. He'll be providing some historical insights into why the transport industry is where we are now and faced with this avalanche of work. Mike will discuss how the industry can rise to the challenge, as we always do. Before lunch, I've got Keith Middleton, who's the Managing Director of the Middleton Group, and he's also the Chair of our new PWI Subcommittee for Electrical. So he'll give us an update on what we're actually doing with that subcommittee and how we're getting electrical infrastructure people into the PWI. We've got Craig Smith from Transport. He'll also be talking about innovations in traction power at Sydney Metro. And then after lunch, we'll be joined with John Armstrong, as I said, who will chair our final session. After lunch, we've actually got a really interesting panel session planned with Steve Fleck from John Hollands, who's going to mediate that. Many of you know Steve. He's the chair of our Steve Maxwell Awards. I've been doing that for a number of years. We've got a really insightful panel of industry-leading experts. So we've got Jolie Petit, Ainsley Simpson, Mark Tate, Michael McClellan, Rebecca Want and Sean Bonham is part of that group this morning. Our final paper for the day will be presented by Emily Williams and Steve Voss from Transport, and they'll be talking about the new learning centre that's been built out at Chullora. And they've got some fantastic photos of old electrical infrastructure. Just a quick note for everyone to remember that the PWI Awards Night will be on the 10th of February next year at the Ivy, so I encourage all of you to push your teams to submit for those awards. We've also got 2 new design awards and also an electrical award added to the program. It's a great opportunity for companies to showcase their projects and be recognised as entrants and acknowledged as award winners. Just a little quick heads up on our PWI cadet program, which is going really well, and I noticed we've got a couple of the cadets here today. If you've got friends or colleagues with children that are just finishing Year 12, I really encourage you to get them to join the rail industry and also look at applying for any of our cadet programs and cadet programs that other organisations run as well. So in closing, I'd like to thank our hard-working committee, volunteers, sponsors and others who helped make the PWI activities during the year such a great success. I'd really have to acknowledge our PWI subcommittee led by Steve Namoski from Arch Artefacts for organising such a stimulating group of presenters and topics this morning. And it should be an excellent theme that he's put together as well. Just a very quick one. I wanted to just talk about and remind people that we've got a networking event this afternoon. So everyone who's got their ticket, you've got a little blue tag on there. That's a wristband. You need to have that on your hand